Hey, everybody, this is Joe Joseph, and this is the DailySheeple.com's Daily News Brief, Part 5 in the series of A Brief History of the New World Order. Okay, so I'm going to start off today with the year 1928, the year before the Great Depression. Now, a lot of people love the work of H.G. Wells, especially sci-fi addicts, because H.G. Wells really kicked off a lot of that interstellar time travel type of sci-fi. You know, then you had Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but H.G. Wells was one of the biggies when it comes to science fiction. And in 1928, a lot of people don't know about this side of H.G. Wells, but he penned The Open Conspiracy, Blueprints for a World Revolution. Now, Wells was a former Fabian socialist, and he wrote, quote, "The political world of the open conspiracy must weaken, efface, incorporate, and supersede existing governments. The open conspiracy is the natural inheritor of socialist and communist enthusiasms. It may be in control of Moscow before it's in control of New York. The character of the open conspiracy will now be plainly displayed. It will be a world religion." Remember, folks, when we talk about words, and remember, words have power, you have to understand what the definition of those words are, what the value of that word is. And in this case, a world religion, I don't think he's speaking in a spiritual sense, unless you look at it from a Luciferian standpoint, but in more so anything done religiously, meaning that all of the governments of the world will come together to form this, new world order, if you will, and not so much come together, but kind of be merged by force, and not necessarily with a jackboot on the back of your neck, but perhaps like we're seeing today with world economies just drowning, the world economy drowning in debt and bubbles and things like that. You can see that, money may be one way to bring everybody together. Let's erase all debt and come out with a world credit-based monetary system. We could see something like that. You could also see something along the lines of let's make the world safe by having one system, do away with borders, and then, it's a lot easier to get from one place to another. I don't know. There's so many ways you can do it. But H.G. Wells saw it coming. 1928. 1931. Now, here's a gentleman that if there's a book that I could recommend people read, this would be one of them. And I had a 10th grade English teacher that had us read this. And I didn't understand at the time why he was bringing this forward. Because I tell you, not many teachers have you read Brave New World. But Aldous Huxley in 1931 penned that book. And it's a darkly satiric vision of a utopian future. Something that, here they are trying to design a utopian world. And really the moral of the story is you never get there. It's never utopian. It may be utopian for one, but it's dystopian for many others. But it's about a utopian future where humans are genetically bred and pharmaceutically basically neutered. If you watch the BBC version of this, it's a movie. It was done in the late 70s, early 1980s. The women in this movie have a rotary dial birth control belt that they wear. And, just a good pictorial of it. But it just goes to show you, what the vision was. And quite frankly, where we are today, because, obviously today women don't need a rotary dial device to deliver birth control medication. However, now they have shots, they have devices like IUDs that you can use, and they're good for years, months or years. And so you don't have that need to have a device like that, but same concept. The elite give us the illusion of freedom, but control all the choices. They give us the choice of hundreds of political candidates, yet nothing changes because both sides are bought and paid for by the elite. They give you the choice of investments of stocks, bonds, and real estate, but when this all goes down, you'll see that it's all a part of the same illusion of the dollar. The elite, of course, control the dollar. It's quite simple, you know? And so you can choose to buy into the system, but almost all the time, the system will disappoint you. You know, we can look to our parents' generation and say, wow, look at, man, they did all right. Look at how they fared, you know, starting at their working and salting things away, and they get a retirement, and, you know, now they get to live out their golden years in relative comfort. But is that our generation's reality? And the sad answer is no, it's not. The prior 2 or 3 generations saw the biggest expansion of quality of life, cost of living. Everything was just, I mean, it was like no other time in human history, the prosperity in the United States. And you're not going to see that anymore. It's gone. It's gone. All that was to get people hooked. 2 or 3 generations and you can brainwash. Heck, 2 generations and brainwashing is a done deal. 3, solid. And that's what's happening now. You know, so when people from my generation come forward with different ways to solve issues because the old way may not work, you meet very stubborn and harsh resistance because you've had those 2 or 3 generations now to plug in these social traditions that are just ingrained in their head that, oh, this is the way it's always been. Well, maybe for your generation, but unfortunately, that's not the reality in our generation. 1933, H.G. Wells is back, and he pens The Shape of Things to Come. Now, Wells predicted a Second World War around 1940 in this publication, originating from a German-Polish dispute. He wrote this in 1933, folks. After 1945, there would be an increasing lack of public safety in criminally infected areas. The plan for the modern world state would succeed on its 3rd attempt, and coming out of something that occurred in Basra, Iraq. The book also states, although world government has been plainly coming for some years, although it has been endlessly feared and murmured against, it found no opposition anywhere. Isn't that interesting? Something so... It can get so bad, and I'm sure it will, that people will not fight it. Almost like 9/11. Problem, reaction, solution. You know, now everybody, after 9/11 happens, comes together, we sing Kumbaya, and voila, Patriot Act. Something that they could never have passed had a 9/11 not occurred. Also in 1933, in a letter to Colonel Edward M. House, Franklin Roosevelt writes this, quote, the real truth of the matter is, as you and I know, that a financial element in the large centers has owned the government since the days of Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson, of course, being famous for kicking out the banksters with the Bank of the United States. He shut it down. And then for 100 years, we printed and we managed our own currency, our own money. And yes, it was subject to very large swings, you know, where you had great prosperity. You also had great depressions, if you will. The interesting thing, though, is in today's world, we have tools at our disposal and technology that can better manage the money flow. Because the real reason why these things occurred was because the money supply could not be properly managed. But today you can do that. So if you want to go down the road of maintaining this concept of money, then the best course of action, of course, would be to do away with the Federal Reserve, because all they're doing is printing money and charging us for it, and take that power back, issue interest-free currency, and issue $1 for every dollar produced. And if you can do that, then you will theoretically hardly ever run into any problems, because you're not oversupplying the money and you're not undersupplying the money. You're simply providing $1 for every dollar produced. So theoretically, there should be nothing that is not bought or not. You don't have the swings. Very interesting. But you'll never see it because by doing so would, of course, be something positive for humanity, and we can't have too much of that. Let's fast forward to March 1942. Now, here's a very interesting article that Time wrote, and it chronicled the Federal Council of Churches, which later becomes the National Council of Churches, a part of the World Council of Churches. Isn't that interesting? You know, like this hierarchy of churches. Now, the Council of Churches lent its weight to efforts to establish a global authority. Listen to this. A meeting of top officials of the council comes out in favor of 1, a world government of delegated powers, 2, strong immediate limitation on national sovereignty, 3, international control of all armies and navies, representatives, 375 of them, of some 30 denominations, assert that a new order of economic life is both imminent and imperative. A new order that is sure to come either through voluntary cooperation within the framework of democracy or through explosive revolution. Something that we could be seeing too with now the advent of the nationalist movements all throughout the world. And believe me, folks, I am not adverse to patriotism, but we need to be very careful about who we pledge our allegiance to. You know? Yeah, I'm all for making sure the United States, hey, let's be that bastion of freedom, but let's be a bastion of freedom. If we're going to label ourselves as that, a little truth in advertising might be nice. Really, what we should be calling ourselves is the communist states of America, because I don't see much united there. We all bicker. You got one state that's perhaps, legalizes recreational marijuana, and you've got states down in the Bible Belt that still put people away for 5 years for it. Are we really united? It's a very, very good debate to have. But also, when it comes to nationalism, you polarize the world in a way that we've seen during World War I, World War II, and now we're getting back to that level of instability. And you have some very strong personalities that have taken the reins of the largest powers on the planet. And there's a level of instability there that makes me very uncomfortable. But out of chaos, order. So if they can foment enough chaos, and I say they being the banksters, corporatists, your oligarchs, if they can cause enough turmoil to evoke responses from governments, they'll get their one world government, because people will be clamoring to do away with nations and armies and all that. And let's all get together in peace. Let's all sing Kumbaya. Too good to be true. Humans are too unstable. June 28th, 1945, U.S. President Harry Truman endorses world government in a speech where he said, quote, "It will be just as easy for nations to get along in a republic of the world as it is for us to get along in a republic of the United States." I don't quite think so. We don't get along in the Republic of the United States, especially now. Has anybody seen? Are we all getting together, fist pumping? Woo! I saw it after 9/11. We had it for about a month, 45 days, where everybody was waving American flags and everybody loved each other. You remember that? Yeah. Not so much now. Not so much now. Very deeply divided nation. And you have a media complex that does nothing but foment it. You've got a clandestine operations that are hell-bent on destabilizing our society. And, I can go on and on. It certainly is not easy. But when you start taking different cultures now and trying to merge them together, that's when you really start to go south. October 24th, 1945. The United Nations Charter becomes effective. Also on October 24th, Senator Glenn Taylor from Idaho introduces Senate Resolution 183 calling upon the U.S. Senate to go on record as favoring the creation of a world republic, including an international police force. So as if it's not bad enough here in the United States that there's, talking federalization of the police, basically you're talking about UN Blue Hats, which is something we already have now, an international, they call it peacekeeping force, right? Well, isn't that what they used to call police, peace officers? Until they became law enforcement? The enforcers, yes. How nice, isn't it? Absolutely crazy. You see, this is just them in their own words. Just them in their own words. And one thing is for certain. Everything that's happening here is an agenda. Now, I'm going to preface that with something. These people may not necessarily know each other. They don't talk to one another, oftentimes. But I can tell you that everybody, whether you believe it or not, there are outside forces that control, that kind of nudge us in a direction this way or that way, Spiritual forces, I believe. Some people call it karma. Some people believe you manifest your own reality, which to an extent I believe as well. But you're talking about outside forces outside of what we physically interpret and experience. And so, boil it down, the battle of good versus evil. That's what we have. And it's funny, because we take a look at things and we say, how come people of honor aren't running for office, aren't doing those things? And the thing is, these places, Congress, Parliament, they're all corrupt to the core, to the point where people of honor just feel like it's a hopeless cause. Most people of honor tend to be critical thinkers, and when you take a look at what's going on in the United States Congress and within the executive branch, you just don't want to participate because your values and virtues don't dictate that. I'm the same way. And then the whole holier than thou aspect of it. These people think that, their poo doesn't stink. And I got news for you. Everybody has skeletons in their closet, but especially politicians. I mean, they are a great pictorial representation of why our society is going down the tubes. The fact that here we have basically what used to be volunteers. The Congress only got together, but for so many days a year. It wasn't a full-time job. Congressmen used to have full-time jobs because they needed it. It was a sacrifice to go and serve in Congress. It was a sacrifice to be a civil servant. Today, it's not a sacrifice. Today, civil servants and politicians feel like they are a privileged sector. They are holier than you. They control you. You are less than them. And that's simply not the case. That's not the way it's supposed to be. But it's something that's over some time has been slowly but surely, implemented and made to become normal. And it shouldn't be normal, And it's gotten so far out of control that we're in the situation we're in now. And it can only get, I'll be honest with you, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And who knows if it's going to get better, but we can only hope. The glass is half full. That's right. I'm Joe Joseph. This was the DailySheeple.com's Daily News Brief, Part 6, coming to you tomorrow at the Daily Sheeple YouTube channel, and subscribe to our newsletter over at the DailySheeple.com. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.